The entire AI industry is being shaken by a massive technological earthquake. The ground is literally shifting under everyone's feet, creating these huge new mountain ranges of opportunity, but also some deep, dangerous fault lines. So in this explainer, we're going to connect all these recent tremors to really understand the bigger picture of this brand new landscape.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll start with a single shockwave that rattled global markets. Then, we're going to look at the unbelievable race happening along the industry's fault lines. After that, we'll dive into the new rules being written for this new world. And finally, we'll see the massive rebuilding effort that every single organization is now facing. All right, let's get into it. First up, let's talk about the event that pretty much triggered this whole earthquake metaphor. We're talking about a single, totally unexpected announcement from the AI vendor Anthropic that had immediate, and I mean immediate, consequences for the entire software industry.
Picture this. It's February 3rd, 2026, and you wake up to headlines like this one. Anthropic, the company behind the Claude AI, had just unveiled a new, specialized legal plugin. And the market's reaction? It wasn't just surprise. It was pure, instantaneous shock.
So here's how the chain reaction went down. It started with legal software companies like Thomson Reuters getting absolutely hammered. But that fear spread like a virus to the entire software as a service market. The panic was really simple and honestly terrifying. What if a powerful specialized AI plugin could just wipe out the business model of massive, established software companies overnight?
Now you gotta understand, that market shock didn't just come out of nowhere. It was a symptom of something much deeper, an incredibly fast-paced technology race. This is the constant grinding and shifting happening along the industry's tectonic plates.
Okay, check this out. Take the red-hot field of generative video. This leaderboard ranks models using an ELO score, which basically measures how good they are relative to each other. In a pretty stunning upset, the startup Runway, with its new Gen 4.5 model, suddenly leaped ahead of giants like Google and OpenAI. It's just a perfect example of how focused, nimble teams can still out-innovate the biggest names in the game.
So what's Google's play in all this? Well, they're not trying to build a bigger engine. They're trying to build a ridiculously fuel-efficient one. Their new flashlight model is incredibly fast and cheap. We're talking just 25 cents per million input tokens. Their goal? Win over all the developers building the next wave of apps by making AI more accessible than ever before.
And this shift from raw power to smart efficiency is causing a hardware quake of its own. For years, Nvidia totally dominated with its GPUs, which are perfect for training massive AI models. That's like building the engine. But now, the focus is shifting to running those models, actually driving the car. That process is called inference, and it needs a whole new kind of chip, the LPU, or Language Processing Unit. This is the new battleground for speed and efficiency.
And we're not just talking about code or chips here. The very heart of the internet, the data center, is being completely reimagined. The entire infrastructure that powers our digital world is getting a total redesign just to handle the massive new demands of AI. The ground is so unstable that even the absolute titans are forming new alliances to stay standing. In a blockbuster move, Apple announced that its future AI features are going to be powered by Google's Gemini models. It's a crystal clear sign that to survive this earthquake, you either innovate at lightning speed or you partner up with someone who does.
Anytime there's a big earthquake, it doesn't just move the ground. It reveals all the weaknesses in the foundations. And in the world of AI, as everything shifts, two huge cracks are starting to appear: the global push for regulation and this intense debate over ethics and risk.
The biggest regulatory shockwave, without a doubt, is the EU AI Act. And look, this isn't some far-off proposal. It's law, and the deadlines are hitting now. Prohibited practices are already banned. But the big one everyone is racing towards is August 2026. That's the deadline for all high-risk AI systems to be in full compliance.
So what in the world is a high-risk system? Well, the key thing to know is that it's not about how complicated the tech is. It's all about how it's used. An AI that screens resumes or calculates a credit score or helps manage a power grid, that's considered high risk because of its potential impact on people's lives and safety.
Okay, now let's shift over to that ethical fault line. This quote is from the really controversial deal between OpenAI and the Pentagon. On the surface, the language seems pretty protective, right? It bans using AI for intentional or deliberate surveillance of citizens. But, and this is the multi-billion-dollar question that legal experts and even some of OpenAI's own staff started asking, what happens if the surveillance isn't targeted, but just happens incidentally?
This is the massive potential loophole that a rival company, Anthropic, reportedly saw and refused to accept when they were talking to the Pentagon.
So, we've seen the market shock, the tech race, and the new rules. Now let's pull the camera back and look at the biggest challenge of all, what this whole AI earthquake means for every other organization on the planet. Because after the ground stops shaking, well, that's when the great rebuilding begins.
At first glance, the news looks fantastic. According to recent research from McKinsey, adoption is everywhere. A massive 88% of organizations, that's nearly 9 out of 10, are experimenting with AI in some way. They are in the game.
But here's the aftershock. Despite all that activity, less than 20% of those companies are seeing any significant impact on their bottom line. We're calling this the adoption paradox. Everyone is experimenting, but almost no one is actually getting real value from it yet.
So why is there this huge gap between trying things and getting results? Well, the top barriers, they're not technical. They are deeply human. At the top of the list are fears about AI itself, things like bias and job replacement, followed by the ethical and legal concerns we just talked about, and then just the sheer difficulty of managing change in a big organization.
And this brings us to what is probably the most crucial point of this entire rebuilding effort. Overcoming these barriers is not a job for the IT department. It is a fundamental challenge of leadership. Leaders have to be the ones to demystify the technology, manage the very real fears people have, and ultimately build trust in this new world.
So, as the dust settles from this huge tectonic shift, the question for every leader, every employee, and every organization is pretty simple. When you look at this new landscape, are you going to be a victim of the aftershock, or are you going to be a central part of the great rebuilding?